Hi.
Hi,
Uh,
Erin. How are you?
I am well, thank you. This is our, well, technically it's our second edition of Lexington Learns with Sharon Spaulding from Spaulding Management. Um, Tell us some of the buildings you own in downtown Lexington, because I feel like you own quite a few and you manage these properties, but it's not necessarily obvious.
No, actually, we just own, we used to manage some that we didn't own, but we just own the building where Clay Oven is and Boston Private Bank and Hytrons. That's 1666 Mass Ave, Lexington.
Mhm.
And then we own the building next to it that actually used to be a schoolhouse in Lexington.
Oh, I
So
didn't know
it's
that.
rich in history, and that's where Robin Gannon Interiors is, and Cotter Architecture. And next door to that, where Big Picture Framing is, and in Charter Insurance is 1646 Mass Ave.
Okay.
So just those three buildings next to each other, and they're, again, sort of directly across from the post office.
Right. Okay. Well, that's still quite a bit. And
Wonderful
especially
tenants.
because those buildings are each so different, it's not obvious that it's all a contiguous property, really.
Yeah, it's a good point. We tried to sort of marry the landscape with the brick and the Algonquin lanterns and so forth, but they all have their own identity for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know about the history of the schoolhouse. That's really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. And when we renovated it, we found a little girl's primer in the walls. Her name was Miriam Kirkland, and
Oh,
she had worked
wow.
at the Cary Library. And we found some patents and a horseshoe. It was a wonderful adventure.
That's cool. That's very cool. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was because it must be quite different being on the landlord side of this during this crisis. You're not the business that's on the nightly news talking about small business and how small business is going to recover. So what has it been like for you on that side of things?
Yes, well, it's certainly been, a partnership with our tenants. Our tenants are just, incredible as far as hardworking, dedicated, and persevering. And we see it really as a win-win, sort of working with our tenants and, working with them with thoughts as far as promoting their business,
Mhm.
getting online, connecting with their base. And then, for instance, the chamber, I have to say, between you and Carol, have done a wonderful job with resources, mass.gov, what you did for the PPP, explaining that.
Well, thank you.
Right. So I do feel that Jim Shaw and the Colonial Times has been incredible.
Yeah.
I think the landlords and retailers together are a team.
Yes, absolutely. I know. I absolutely agree with that. What have you been hearing from your tenants? How are they feeling?
Yeah, everybody's different, but it's very hard times. I think the positive thing that I feel and I'm hearing is that Lexington residents are very supportive and they want to be supportive. And I think that's the great news for going forward. As we look at the summer, I really feel hopeful. I think maybe more people will be around,
Mhm.
that they'll be supporting the retailers. And I know they already are with the restaurants. They've supported Clay Oven. Clay Oven has done an incredible job of getting the word out,
Yeah.
being, very interesting as far as what they're offering, and
Yeah.
great feedback on their food and how good it is. And we helped them. We got some banners for them and helped them. It was nice that the town allowed the sandwich boards,
Mhm.
which was another sort of partnership. The town, relaxing that requirement. Um, so it's very hard. It's very difficult. Challenges that no one has faced before.
Mhm.
But we've heard it so many times and probably tired of the phrase. But we certainly are all in this together. You
Yeah.
can't say it better than that.
Yeah. No, it's very true. And I would totally agree with you about the partnership. The town has been very supportive and very open. They're accessible, which is so important
Yes.
to feel like you can, pick up the phone or send an email and you're going to get a response, and not in a week, but in a day. And, I know I sat in on a select board meeting a couple weeks ago, and the select board was very concerned, amongst themselves. They were very concerned about what are we going to do? How are we going to reopen? How do we support the retailers? How do we support the restaurants? Can we relax certain regulations and in a temporary way? I mean, it's very refreshing to me to see that they're proactive about this.
I always feel that the select board in Lexington and the town manager, they're listeners. They want to
Yeah.
listen. They want to do their discovery and be responsible about really learning what there is to learn, looking at other communities. And I think the conversation that we had with the Concord Chamber about gift cards and so forth was really helpful and
Yeah,
reflective of, as communities, we can learn from each other.
I
So.
agree. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So, what adjustments have you had to make
Mhm.
as a landlord?
Yes, so many adjustments. We started putting in like touchless faucets, automatic flush toilets, a lot of signage as far as, one to an elevator,
Mhm.
um, reminding folks about masks, reminding folks about keeping the 6 feet apart. Um, we're asking our landscapers who have been wonderful about it not to use blowers, to just sweep. Um, yes, many adjustments. Mhm,
That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought about the blowers, but yes, of course, that's
mhm,
absolutely true. Um, One of the questions I've heard in different webinars and so forth is what the responsibility of the landlord is in a building versus the responsibility of the tenant. So, do you have any insight on that?
I really, I guess you'd have to speak to a lawyer about really that, other than, you know, really the landlord is trying to be responsible about the common area, but also everybody needs to be responsible for themselves, whether it's wearing gloves, in the touch surfaces and so forth, wearing the mask. And the more that we all do that, of course, the better off we'll be. So, mhm.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're taking charge. You're leading um,
Absolutely.
with
Mhm.
the signage and changing out toilets and other facilities and so forth. So those are things that I imagine you don't have to do. No one has said these are regulated, at least so far, but
Right.
you're again proactive. You are going out of your way to anticipate that.
Yes, we want to be. And there was such great information on various webinars, as you say, which was very helpful. And, just we, again, like you, we tried to learn what there was to learn. Um, I have wonderful tenants. I'm very lucky, and we want to do anything we can. And they've been wonderful.
One
So,
of the you mentioned that we had a conversation a couple weeks ago with Concord Chamber of Commerce and some of their business community too, and that was a really good fun conversation for me. It was nice to meet
it was fun.
those counterparts. But
Yeah.
one of the takeaways I took from that meeting, specifically from you, was about the high touch surfaces in a business and rethinking the flow of how a customer enters and moves through the transaction. I thought it was excellent that you were helping your tenants with that.
Mhm. Yes, and again, I think um, we've all just, there's so much on, also on the mass.gov website, folks opening, that are learning. But I think, we certainly have a lot of places that we can learn from. This is all new,
It's all new.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're
I
learning every day.
yes. Right. Well, we all went into it blind, but after, we're coming up on 3 months really of all
Yes.
of this. And in fact, that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this series, because I know a lot of people now after 3 months do feel like they've learned things and they've gotten a handle on at least certain aspects of it.
Mhm.
So, what would you see going forward that you think you're going to adopt? Something that you've had to change that you
Mhm.
think you're going to keep in place.
Yes, well, I was very lucky because even in February when we were starting to see this in another country, I actually got a lot of hand sanitizers, just realizing that was going to be in folks' heads about wanting cleanliness. And I think certainly new standards. I mean, even just again, retrofitting, um, you know, different fixtures and, um, I think we've all learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I've heard, I know the attitude from the town, because I've heard this both from the select board and the town manager, is that it's a crisis and it's very difficult, but it's also an opportunity to rethink how we
Yes.
approach things and to challenge. We've always done it this way, but we're having to adapt. So as long as we're changing things up, how can we adapt for the future?
Right, exactly. And I think a lot of the retailers have done a great job as far as, creating an e-commerce position and all of that. I think, the retailers, the Michelsons and so forth have done a great job of creating communication. Again, Jim Shaw in the Colonial Times. So everybody has taken their part.
It's a
We're
resilient
all in.
community. Absolutely. I mean, I've only been in this position for a little over 6 weeks, but I have seen that. I've been impressed by the resilience I've seen from the business owners and the residents.
Yeah, Lexington is a wonderful community. It's a privilege to own buildings here.
Sure. Uh,
Yeah.
so what do you see coming in the commercial landscape then, coming out of this? Are there discussions kind of there must be landlord associations the way that there are retail associations and stuff. What is happening in that space?
So right now, to be honest, Erin, I've really been focusing on my tenants and the building, and trying to learn what there was to learn. Obviously, again, the Lexington Chamber and different resources that you provided for tenants to learn how to get through this economically. Their responsibility is in their own space. That's fully their responsibility. For us, for the common area. So to be honest, I haven't really gone the next step, and I apologize, but I'm not
No,
really there yet to sort of know what this looks like.
yeah, no,
Um,
that's totally fair. And I mean, it's wonderful to hear that as a landlord, you're more concerned about your tenants than your future necessarily, right? I mean,
First things first. Yeah.
that's a very kind attitude, and I'm sure your tenants appreciate it.
Well, like I said, I have great tenants and, you know, great town to be in. Yeah.
Um, I know you can't speak for other landlords, obviously, but what would you recommend a business do? I mean, surely some of your tenants have been struggling, I know, but as more general advice, what would you recommend a tenant do, or talk to their landlord about if they are struggling?
I think just having open conversations about what the needs are. Again, just the different things that you can do as a team, um, again, there's a lot as referenced some folks to the chamber you know, um, and I would just have open dialogue. Yep. Just, you know, they need to know where the tenant is. The tenant needs to know where the landlord is. And yeah, I think knowing folks that in this town, that's, can't imagine, you know.
One of the things that I have learned through this crisis, because I have been a tenant in a commercial space before, but as a tenant, you don't see it from the landlord side. So one of the things that I've learned, I didn't realize that a lot of landlords don't own their buildings outright. And so they're also having to make mortgage payments on the facilities themselves. So it isn't as though landlords are just sitting around collecting rent on buildings that are fully paid off. There are hardships on the landlord side as well.
Right, absolutely. We have mortgages and we have expenses and, um, and that doesn't change. So it is, a very difficult situation economically. I know it is for us, but we're just gonna have to see it through.
Well, I am so grateful that you took the time to
Well,
talk with
thank you,
me.
and thanks for all your help. And like I
Oh,
said, you've already done a great job with the chamber
thank
and Jim
you.
Shaw and Carol, and yeah, a great team. I really appreciate it.
It is a great team. I have been very, very grateful that, everybody's been supportive, everybody has helped, everybody has pitched in. Carol's even going around picking up supplies and things like that. If
It's amazing.
yeah, no, it's really wonderful. Everybody is really involved, which is very helpful,
That's what it'll
especially
take. Yeah, and we'll get through
starting,
it.
yeah, starting in this environment.
We'll
Yeah,
be stronger. Yeah.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you. I will,
I hope to talk to you soon.
yes, thank you. And I'm going to just put a little plug in really quickly before we end, just to say that tomorrow I'm going to do a double header. Actually, I mentioned to you, and I know our Facebook followers know, I tried to talk to Joel Berman yesterday and it
All
didn't
right,
work.
Joel.
It was technical difficulties, but
I was
tomorrow,
on the board of the Lexington Chamber with him.
oh,
Yeah, years
oh,
ago. Years
nice.
ago. Yeah, he's wonderful.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he's a wonderful man, very pleasant, and he was
Yeah.
very, very tolerant with all of the mishaps yesterday. But tomorrow, I'm going to go stand on his lawn, and we're going to stay 6 feet apart, and I'm just going to go Facebook Live
Oh,
with him
wonderful. Oh,
and
I
just
won't
make
miss
it happen.
that.
And then I'm
Great.
also going to talk to Lexington Graphics tomorrow at
Oh,
3.
wonderful. Yes, I've got some signage from them actually that I hung up about the COVID
Yeah,
issue,
they
and they
have
were
some really nice.
wonderful. Oh, I
Yes,
can't say enough. They're just wonderful community players.
I
Yes.
agree. So,
Yeah,
so that's
great.
my plug for tomorrow. Make sure people are tuning into that. But thank you again very
You,
much, Sharon.
Erin. Yeah. Take care.
You too.
Okay.